Welcome back to another Inside Lansing. Today's guest is Dan Podgorski, Village Administrator for the Village of Lansing. Dan, thanks for being here today.
Hi Neil, thanks for having me. Always great to join LNN.
It's been a year, so it's been, I can't believe it's already been a year, to be honest.
Yeah, it felt like I had only been gone for a few months when we walked in here to get started today.
Well, let's get started. Let's start asking some questions. Let's start in with new developments. What new developments are kind of happening right now? I know I've heard about Smoothie King and like Taco Bell, Chipotle are a few. Could you talk about just a few of them and where they're at right now?
Sure. I think probably most Lansing residents have, they've noticed the Torrance Avenue corridor, the redevelopment that we're bringing to that area. The first major name that we brought was Starbucks. Obviously, they've been open now since I think last fall, and they're doing very well. So the same developer is bringing us a Taco Bell, which will be located directly north of the Starbucks, right there at about 179th, 180th in Torrance, just north of Thornton Lansing Road. We have a different developer, but continuing northbound. Once you get north of where the Taco Bell is, there's a 6-flat apartment building that'll stay. And then just north of that is the old Cafe Borgia building, and then another building that the village owns. It used to house a place called High Performance Graphics. So those two buildings together, they're both going to come down, and they'll be replaced by the Smoothie King. So as far as an update on time, Taco Bell they've broken ground. And so they're in the process. They're doing their site work, and they'll be starting construction shortly. We're doing this.
That whole corridor is going to be just completely changed.
That's the plan, and it's going to take several years to get there. To really re-envision the entire corridor. But that's what we want to keep bringing some newer businesses. We want to take, the older buildings that were constructed, right up on Torrance Avenue, especially on the east side of Torrance, between 178th and Thornton Lansing Road. They're very tight. That 2-block stretch, those buildings are right up on Torrance. Those ultimately we want to see them come down and be replaced with some newer retailers where the development is set back off the street, parking in the front. Makes for a safer environment. So the Taco Bell, just again a quick update. They've broken ground. You'll see construction start soon. They're projecting a mid-September of this year opening. Smoothie King is still waiting on some permits from the Water Reclamation District and for the utility companies to disconnect all their utilities on site. It's a great example of sometimes we have to wait for other agencies to clear the project.
People don't realize that you have to kind of work with other agencies and other departments and stuff from outside of the village.
Yeah, exactly. But we're hopeful. We're expecting that demolition to take place here this summer, and we're expecting Smoothie King to be constructed this year as well. Jumping to staying in the same area, but jumping to the west side of the street, at the northwest corner of Thornton Lansing Road in Torrance, you have Chipotle that'll be coming there. That's right there on that corner. There's really been nothing there for a long time. It'll be just south of Dixie Kitchen, and it'll be to the east of the new Torrance property building for seniors and veterans.
Oh, really? It's going to be right there?
Yeah, it'll be right there on the corner. Chipotle, they just came through and got their approvals for the drive-through and outdoor seating. So their intent is to start construction, I think, in July, and hopefully be done and open before the end of the year.
What's the process like when you're working with these for you? What was the process like for administrator?
Yeah, to facilitate this development, the key for us has been reaching an agreement in principle with our developer, and it's Dan Abdo at the Glazier Corporation. Okay. So we had really kind of had a meeting with them back in about 2018, 2019. I know it was pre-COVID, and we talked about the village's intentions to start collecting some of these properties that again were built right up on Torrance, or just were old and needed where the sites were just begging for something to be, to be renovated. So the village set out to acquire the properties and do the demolition, and then the agreements are we've conveyed the properties to the developer, and then without any additional incentives, there's no property tax breaks, there's no TIF breaks. We use that money to do the property acquisition and demolition. And then at that point, the developer has a list of national clients that he's worked with before, AKA Starbucks, Chipotle, Taco Bell.
A lot of big names people recognize.
Yeah, and others. And so, the plan is to just kind of keep working our way north on Torrance Avenue and kind of redevelop that 2 or 3 block stretch of Torrance that's south of 80. So
anything worth doing takes a little bit of time, takes effort. So
yeah.
it takes a while, but in the end, you're hoping to see kind of a rejuvenation of that, right?
Yeah, development, you got to measure it in years, not weeks or months, because there's property that needs to be acquired.
There's construction.
Yep.
You've got permits, right?
Exactly.
All
those
so
things.
Many
and
plans, architecture.
And sometimes you're at the whim of, like we discussed earlier, you're at the whim of the Water Reclamation District or even IDOT, because these buildings that are
IDOT, right?
These buildings that need a curb cut on Torrance Avenue. Torrance is a state route, so IDOT has to approve where the curb cuts are going to go. That's been part of the hang up with Chipotle, is IDOT was initially not permitting a curb cut on Torrance Avenue. They were going to make access only on Thornton Lansing Road. We pushed back very hard on that. Ultimately, they acquiesced, and there is going to be a right-in, right-out access on Torrance Avenue. So that has kind of green-lighted that project. So those things, that's why development has to be measured in years and not shorter increments, because all the other things you talked about too factor in. But you kind of, you sort of take a look back every year and say, okay, what did we get accomplished this year? And all of a sudden, after 3 or 4 years, you look back and say, okay, now you're starting to see this corridor be re-envisioned. And and then you start going, you start flipping. You go to the north side of Interstate 80, and you can see the Quick Trip that's up, and they're going to be open by the middle of July. That's that Kmart property came down, and even further north, Bevda's has now opened up where American Sales used to be.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And that's a liquor store that was on Ridge Road. They took that license and moved it to Torrance and 170th. So good use of a really great building that for a lot of years was the home to American Sale. But again, trying to re-envision, trying to really make that Torrance Avenue corridor relevant and make it exciting. Lansing is busy. A lot of people use Torrance who don't even live in Lansing. They, Northwest Indiana folks use Torrance to get to and from work. So, that's our whole goal, is to just kind of re-envision the corridor and, bring some vibrancy back to it for now and for the future.
Now, re-envisioning, reinvigorating, if we will, talking about that, what about the Ford Hangar? The Ford Hangar is a milestone of this community and something that I know that you've been very passionate about. What's happening over at the Ford Hangar right now?
Well, very exciting. As you mentioned, it's the Ford Hangar was constructed back in 1926 by Henry Ford. It was going to be utilized in the construction and storage of his tri-motor airplanes. Long history, which we won't get into today. The village owns that Ford Hangar. It's on the National Registry of Historic Places. The goal that the village has is to renovate within the confines of the architectural history and significance. It has to stay on the Registry of Historic Places, but we would like to be able to turn it into an indoor venue of sorts. So think the inside version of what we have at Fox Pointe. Fox Pointe is outdoor entertainment. The Ford Hangar could be indoor entertainment, and it would have, I think, a lot more versatility, because you could do corporate meetings inside the hangar. You can have weddings, smaller parties. You could have, and we've had the vintage markets there before. You certainly could have concerts. I think you could have limited sporting events there as well. Think like cornhole tournaments, or you could do a boxing match at the Ford Hangar.
That's true.
Really, there's a lot of different, a lot of versatility that you could have there. The key with it is to be able to bring some system work to the Ford Hangar, because there's no heating, there's no air conditioning in the Ford Hangar, there's no plumbing either.
It's kind of like a shell right now.
It is. It is. It's a beautiful historic shell without a lot of system support. So there's limited electric in there. So the goal here within the next several months is to go through the planning and design of what that Ford Hangar could look like, and envision it as a finished product, which enables it to be utilized as a full-service indoor venue, but still maintains its structural, architectural, and historical significance as the Ford Hangar. And
I imagine that's a lot of plans that have to go into that.
Yeah, our architect will be Jim Maciejewski of JMA Architects, who did the design for us at Fox Point. I know Jim's already hard at work on some ideas that would allow those two things to be married, where you again, the goal is to retain the architectural integrity, but yet make it a current and usable indoor venue. So the heating and cooling and the plumbing is going to be challenging, and it's that's why we bring in people like
Bringing
Jim.
the pros, right?
That's right, right.
Not you doing it, or not me, definitely.
Right. So no, it's something to look forward to. You know, another parallel goal for development is to create destination drivers in Lansing, and that's what Fox Point is. Fox Point brings people not only from Lansing, but from outside of Lansing, brings them here to see a show, and then hopefully fan out into the Ridge Road downtown area and eat some dinner, or stop for drinks before or after a show. The same thing applies to the Ford Hangar. You turn it into a destination driver where you're hosting events and weddings and corporate outings, and that brings people to Lansing, and then they see other opportunities when they're here. Oh, I didn't know Lansing had Fox Point. Oh, I didn't know there was an airport.
Or New Smoothie King. Or
I didn't know Lansing had all these other amenities.
Yeah.
So that's the whole goal, is create drivers within your community, capitalize on the uniqueness. Other towns don't have a Fox Point. Other towns don't have an airport or a Ford Hangar.
Or downtown corridor.
Right, or a traditional downtown corridor. So we have to, reinvest in those assets that we have, and make them attractive. Fill them with good businesses that people want to come and patronize, and it adds to the overall vibrancy and excitement that is building within the town.
Now, there are other developments that you've been working on too, as well, different buildings in town that you guys have been acquiring. Do you have anything on that aspect to talk about in terms of like how that's going to help the community?
Sure. I mean, we talked about Torrance before. We mentioned the Quick Trip. Also on Torrance, about 172nd, there's going to be a new hotel coming to Lansing. It's a True by Hilton. It's one of the Hilton products, geared a little bit more for today's modern and younger travelers. That'll be located just west of where the Outriggers and Dixie Kitchen restaurant used to be, kind of tucked away back there. You're seeing couple new restaurants popped up on Ridge Road within the last month or so. You're seeing the Bulldog Ale House and restaurant has now replaced Jack's Bar and Grill in the 3300 block of Ridge. And then Honeyberry Pancakes is now replaced where Baker Square used to be. So a couple nice new restaurants that people are patronizing and doing well. You'll have Crystal Goins is working on a ramen-based restaurant.
Oh, really? Okay.
Where the old Golden Palace used to be. I think that's 3307 Ridge. So you start to see some construction going on there. And there's others that we're working on. We're still hopeful that One Trick Pony is going to move from Chappelle to the old DeYoung furniture. That's not dead yet. I get asked that question a lot. It's been frustrating how long that project has taken to get off the ground. We've just met recently with the owner and his development team. We still think there's some life to that project, and we're hopeful to see it get started. It's probably the question I get asked the most in terms of development, because we probably announced that one probably in the COVID year. It might have been 2020 when we announced it, and people see the signs coming soon.
It's been a few years, yeah.
Nothing's been happening. So, you don't always hit a home run in development. Sometimes you suffer some.
You get to go up to bat again, though.
Yeah, you suffer some some losses along the way. I wouldn't call this one a loss yet. It just hasn't materialized the way in the way that we wanted, at least from a time frame perspective. But if they're able to bring that microbrewery to that site, it's going to be an anchor on Ridge Road, and I think it'll help transform Ridge Road and keep it going in the direction that I think we have it pointed.
Well, we're looking forward to that for sure.
Same here.
Another thing that I know has been worked on for a while, and thought maybe you can give us a little update on that as well. Maybe some people don't even know about it, is that the Public Works, we're looking at getting a new building over there and some new kind of amenities as well. What is happening with that, and where are we at currently with that project?
Yeah, this has been a long time coming. Probably going to start to see some action taken by the board within the next fiscal year, calendar year. There was some property acquisition that needed to happen along Burnham Avenue to kind of help us square off the site. We definitely would like to kind of transform the Public Works yard into a much more resident-friendly experience, and then give the department some more better tools and conditions in which to work. So what will happen is you'll see some demolition of the property at 17035 Burnham. It's been kind of a multi-purpose industrial kind of warehousing operation over the years. We'll retain a portion of the building that's located on the far east side for some additional storage, but the parts of the building that are up close to Burnham will come down. You'll see the plan is for a new administrative building to be constructed pretty close to Burnham Avenue, and this is where residents could interact with the Public Works. That's where we might have a drop off for electronic recycling and some other recyclables. But this is where you would go to to meet with the Public Works Department if you had a need, like if you had branches that needed to be picked up and they weren't picked up, and you needed to stop in and communicate with Public Works. It'd be an administration building right there on Burnham. We're hoping to build an emergency operations center on the back side of it.
Okay.
So that if we have a true emergency, which we know we have had those over the years, floods, tornadoes, civil unrest, you have a place where all the department heads can get together and manage an emergency. And then the third phase, the first phase, I guess, would be the demolition of the properties I talked about earlier. The second phase would be construction of the administration building. The third phase would be the construction and expansion of the shop area in the back that houses the vehicles, and it's where most of the employees of Public Works, where they get their tools, get their vehicles, and where they would be dispatched from to go out and service the community. So it'd be an expansion.
Be a big step up for them.
Big step up, and also it would include a new fueling station, which will ultimately become the primary fueling station for all village departments, police, fire, and Public Works.
Wow, okay.
And building would all fuel up in one station. Instead of having, we have a fueling station at police, which is not in operation anymore. We have a smaller fueling station at Fire Station 29. Those ultimately would go away. We would have one centralized fueling station there at Public Works.
So many plans, so many things on the horizon.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. I mean, we could talk for a long time, However, I thought it'd be nice to kind of finish off on Fox Pointe.
Sure.
That is our destination driver. That is the thing, and we're in the middle of summer. It's the most popular place in town. Could you talk a little bit about, I know you probably have some future plans for it, as well as maybe already changes that you've made this year that people might want to know about?
Sure. And you're right. That is one of the things we want to continue introducing new vibes and new experiences at Fox Pointe. We don't want to get complacent or have people come out there and think, oh, it's the same thing we did, same thing we saw last year. So you have to continually strive to get new acts out there while still bringing back some of the ones that have done well in the past. So you see a nice mix in this year's lineup of some of the bands that have performed extremely well and had great crowds in the past, mixed in with some new ones. This year, we're debuting a second full-service bar. It's a temporary bar right now on the kind of like the northwest corner of the property, so patrons have a second place to go get a beverage. We are making some plans for that to be replaced with a permanent structure next year, as well as a nice patio area that would be outside where the food concession area is now. So you're seeing some changes to the entertainment, to the groupings. We're still true to the Wednesday night concert series. Those shows are free, and our intent is to always remain, keep that Wednesday series and have those be free shows. We've debuted a 4-pack of shows this year called Friday Night Lights, and those are $10 ticketed shows, and you see two of what we would call our highlighted bands. You'll see 2 of those instead of 1, like you do on a Wednesday. Wednesday you get an opener and then then the main act. On Friday Night Lights you see 2 bands worthy of being the headliner. So those are on Fridays, and then so that's kind of forced us into a ticketing platform. And so we have you can go online to get your tickets to Friday Night Lights, and so the goal for next year, for 2024, is after we perfect the ticketing system this year, we would hope to have some national acts at Fox Pointe debuting in 2024. Now, when I say national, we joked before we started taping today, a band like Taylor Swift is not going to come to Lansing. We're talking about A-listers that are nationals that maybe were in their prime 10, 20 years ago, but are still touring, and and the capacity of our venue is more appropriate for those types of bands. So that would be our goal for next year, maybe to have a 3 or a 4 or a 6-pack of those kinds of shows, and those might be on Fridays or Saturdays, but that's still to be determined. But the goal is to always continue offering more, keep demonstrating improvements, and continue making a great first impression, because there's Lansing folks that haven't been to Fox Pointe yet. You think everybody knows about it, but they don't. So we have to get better at marketing. One of the things we're going to be doing in the next year or so, this is not exactly in the Fox Pointe lane, but we're going to be going to a monthly water billing system. Okay, when we do that, we're going to have the ability to push out some advertising or some notices to residents on a monthly basis. And so we intend, one of the ways to promote Fox Pointe is to get it out to the people in 60438 who probably know about it, but maybe they haven't been out there yet.
Right.
If you leave to and from work and you don't pass Ridge Road, I don't know, do you even know about it?
Right.
So we think there's certainly more marketing we can do within Lansing, and we're always striving to make a great first impression on people that are outside of Lansing, who, again, destination drivers, bring people here, send them home with a really positive first impression, and hope that they'll come back and spend some of the money with us or with some of our other businesses on Ridge Road or Torrance Avenue. It's just all about kind of building that Fox Pointe brand and building, kind of envisioning a revived and revitalized Lansing. So those are goals that, again, take years to realize, but you do them in small increments, and then they start to add up.
Well, we see the seeds of the labor happening. We see the growth starting, and I think it's very exciting. And I can't wait for. I know we'll be here before you know it. Next year we'll be sitting down discussing the same thing and finding out where we've gone, where we're headed.
Yeah.
And it's just exciting that we'll see some new developments this year, as well as these big projects start getting kind of moving towards that. So.
Yeah, hopefully next year we can start the show with some pictures of Taco Bell, Chipotle, and Smoothie King, and hopefully we'll have some other nice names to reveal next year for you.
We're looking forward to it. And again, Dan, we just want to thank you again for being on the show.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Inside Lansing.